Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbul with you at BTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two very important stories. The first is in reference to the Prime Minister's press conference that was earlier held today, flagged by very senior ministers as well, specifically with regards to, of course, the very successful conference that was held in Geneva regarding flood damage and the kind of recovery that we were expecting from the international community, which, of course, successfully has been achieved at about $10 billion. A lot of this, of course, as announced by the finance minister today, is in the form of project loans, about $8.7 billion, and it will be considered over a span of 3 years. We're going to be taking a look at exactly what that means in terms of our development needs, especially in the aftermath of the floods that hit Pakistan last year, and with regards to the climate change response that we keep on talking about, and what the foreign minister and the climate change minister has, of course, very actively been pursuing at the international level as well, both at the COP27 and then, of course, at this particular conference as well. The numbers, of course, that were quoted by Pakistan that were required from the international community, what we have received in pledges is more than that. But in terms of how this is going to go ahead and we'll be seeing the kind of inflow that is needed is still, of course, a question that we are going to try and explore further. Specifically, the kind of conditions that exist and the way it's going to be linked to the IMF's 9th review, which still is something that we haven't really seen any particular news coming in from or any progress achieved, even though there were meetings on the sidelines with the IMF. There's also, of course, the US talking about its own support to Pakistan's economic recovery, but a lot of it, of course, depends at the end of the day as to what is going to happen with regards to the IMF package. This is also something that the finance minister spoke about and said that along with his meetings with the IMF, the kind of assurances and requirements that were needed were given again, and that this is going to be done without putting any pressure on the common man who is already suffering due to the very extreme economic challenges and conditions that exist within the country. So we're going to take a closer look at this particular conference, its successes, and what is the way forward in terms of Pakistan and the challenges ahead, as the Prime Minister also reiterated that it's going to be dependent on us now how we're going to be seeing the cash inflow and how we're going to follow up. But of course, he pledged that the people who are suffering and the people who have been affected are going to be taken care of, and not a single penny is going to be spent anywhere else, which of course points to the very important questions of transparency that have been highlighted in the past as well. So that is going to be our focus in the first segment of the show today. In the next one, we're going to take a closer look at what is happening in the Punjab Assembly, both now and over the past few days as well. And also, especially since the announcement coming in last year from the PTI chairman of the dissolution of assemblies in KP and Punjab, in the aftermath of which we saw many developments coming in, moving forward with, of course, the issue of a vote of confidence to be taken by the governor, and then, of course, that ruling also being done by the speaker, claiming that the governor's order was not constitutional, with the governor also saying the same about the speaker's ruling, which brought us to the courts. And because of that, we saw a hearing taken place last month that was then extended till today, and we also saw that the Punjab Assembly was given an interim relief, with the CM Punjab given the status of CM with the condition that the Assembly will not be dissolved till the next hearing, which has been extended now till 9 a.m. tomorrow, which means that the assemblies will not be dissolving till then at least. But with regards to the vote of confidence, we've heard news coming in from the PTI leaders and Fawad Chaudhry Saab claiming that the vote of confidence will be taken shortly, and they're only waiting for a couple more lawmakers who are going to be joining soon for their numbers to be complete. And the extension in the Punjab Assembly session to another hour, which means that we have about 30-40 minutes more left within that, is going to then, of course, bring more clarity in terms of what is going to happen, whether or not the vote of confidence will be taken tonight, and whether or not the numbers are there as it is. Of course, the opposition, along with the Interior Minister, have been claiming otherwise and talked about how the numbers are not complete, and that this is something that needs to be done in order for the CM to be able to establish his confidence within the Assembly, with the Lahore High Court also reiterating that there needs to be around-the-clock confidence that needs to be enjoyed by the CM. So we're going to take a closer look at what is happening in Punjab, and of course, hopefully, we'll be getting more clarity as we proceed within the show. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Patafi, and for our first segment with regards to the situation in terms of our climate change response and economic challenges. We've been joined by Dr. Agdas Afzal, who's an economist. Thank you very much for joining us online. And let me start with you, Dr. Agdas, considering, of course, that there are big claims being made in terms of what Pakistan is terming a huge success at the donors conference that was held in Geneva. We, of course, have seen that in terms of what Pakistan has put forward as an expectation or a demand in the number of $8 billion, that perhaps has definitely exceeded. But there are, of course, a lot of question marks that are also being raised as to the conditions of the loans, as to the form of the loans, and when exactly are we going to receive them. Considering all of these factors, how big of a success do you think this conference has been? And in terms of how soon we're going to be seeing the benefits of it, what do you think the challenges still remain in order for us to be able to claim the kind of success that we're talking about?
Thank you very much for having me on your show. I think the most recent conference, namely a Resilient Pakistan conference that just concluded a few days ago in Geneva, was by all standards a resounding success as far as Pakistan's diplomatic success is concerned. And Pakistan was able to garner support in addition, far and beyond to what we had actually asked the international community to chip in. So I think in terms of the world community coming together at Pakistan's call and answering Pakistan's call and giving us more money than we had actually asked for is extremely is a very welcome development as far as Pakistan's affairs are concerned. And I would also like to make 2 points here. The first point has to do with the fact that despite what people may think, Pakistan still seems to enjoy a modicum of soft power around the world. And, an evidence of that is leading nations of the world and institutions coming together and helping Pakistan in its hour of need. And the second point that I want to make here is to compliment and to appreciate the outstanding service that I have seen on display by Senator Sherry Rahman, who is the Minister for Climate Change, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who is Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Ahsan Iqbal, Planning and Development Minister, as well as the Prime Minister. I think the high command of Pakistani leadership has come together, and they have done a really good job in highlighting Pakistan's issues, Pakistan's problems and destruction in the wake of the most recent flood, and they deserve applause and appreciation by the whole nation. So these are the 2 main points I want to make. And now to move forward to the substantive question that you asked me about what kind of challenges Pakistan is going to face as far as the realization of these flows are concerned. Look, when it comes to the amount that has been promised, these are not actual flows, these are pledges. And only time will tell that how many of these pledges are actually going to materialize. But I think we can safely assume that a great majority of these pledges are going to materialize, but not right away. They are going to be provided for various projects. These projects are going to be very closely supervised by the donors, and this amount is going to be spread over 3 years. So what this means is that the kind of liquidity foreign exchange crisis or liquidity crisis or the cash crunch Pakistani economy is presently facing, these funds, where they do point towards a modicum, some kind of confidence that the international community is exhibiting in Pakistan and Pakistani leadership, they are not going to solve Pakistan's immediate problems. And for that, we are going to have to look towards the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have heard some news coming from Saudi Arabia that they are going to be depositing an additional $2 billion into with the Pakistani State Bank of Pakistan. And we are going to have to keep looking towards the IMF and hoping that that program or that deal with the IMF is going to materialize sooner than later so that it can really relieve pressure on the Pakistani economy. Yes.
Right, absolutely. Farooq, of course, this, as Dr. Agdas was mentioning, is an important diplomatic victory as well, and it's a great success in terms of the kind of numbers we put forward to, and also in terms of establishing perhaps Pakistan's credibility in terms of the responses or financial responsibility that Pakistan has put forward. But a lot of that is also something that was, of course, watched closely by IMF and other international financial institutions, and something perhaps on the basis of which we're still sort of stuck with our conversation regarding the ninth review as well. How much of an impact do you think that this is going to have? Because a lot of what we are claiming in terms of the kind of pledges that have been made is also dependent on our success with the IMF. And a lot of what the IMF is also talking about depends on the way that we're going to respond to the floods and, of course, other issues related to the recovery and rehabilitation that is still needed. So how exactly will the two be able to really be able to balance? And moving forward, what do you think is going to affect each the most?
Right, Sana. First of all, I totally agree with Dr. Agdas regarding these achievements by our foreign policy, our diplomacy. And particularly, because we have been talking about our political leaders for past 2 days, let me also congratulate all the Foreign Office staff who have actually worked diligently, and other secretaries also, because we saw that the entire government machinery was actually invested, and they really spent their time. It was time well spent, by the way, in convincing the world of the ordeal that Pakistan faces. But regarding IMF, you might have noticed a level of reluctance on their part to actually move forward. And there were 2 or 3 basic reasons. One, of course, is the commitments, and because we keep on changing our team, and it has been changing for months and months, right? In the past 6 years, we have changed, more than half a dozen finance ministers and governors, state banks, and FBI chief, and umpteen other posts, right? Because of that, there is the problem of stability and commitments, and that actually puts off the IMF. But then there is the issue of financing gap. Usually it is thought if you are an investor and you have invested in a boat and the boat seems to be sinking, you actually stop investing further until the boat actually stays clear of the immediate crises, and then it is buoyed back. We saw in Sri Lanka's case that they did not actually move forward in trying to rescue Sri Lanka at the right time. And there has been a lot of noise, some from within this country, because we have opposition parties that keep on berating the government, and they cannot differentiate between the state and the government. But then, of course, India also plays a part in saying that Pakistan is going to collapse very soon. So this time what we saw was the entire world coming together in support of Pakistan. So it is clear that Pakistan is not going to sink. And 2 or 3 examples of that, particularly apart from these funds or pledges that were mentioned earlier, there is the commitment or possibility of commitment of Saudi investment, and then we hear UAE is also going to play a part, and then China, which is and the Asia, infrastructure bank that they have control over or influence over, that has also committed. We can see that Pakistan is not going to sink. That's why I think in coming days IMF is going to actually come back as well. But today what really worried me was that finance minister was asked about a timeline, and I did not hear a timeline coming from him, even though Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister were very clear that we are going to stay committed. I wanted to see that our finance minister is not reluctant in that context. So we still have to wait and see what becomes of that.
Absolutely, and that, of course, is going to be extremely vital as we move ahead. Dr. Agdas, a lot of the pledges, of course, that were made is being talked about in terms of what exactly they entail and where they're coming from, especially when we talk about bilateral engagements or multilateral engagements as well. What exactly do you think is going to be the impact, especially of the pledges coming in from multilateral engagements and from institutions and from banks, and exactly what sort of conditions do you think can possibly be there, because we so far do not have enough information with regards to the kind of conditions that exist on the loans, except the fact that perhaps they're linked with the IMF.
I'm not entirely sure, Sana, if these pledges are going to be linked with the IMF deal. I think that those two are somewhat separate because I don't think there is a connection between the two. Pakistan has been promised this assistance, and this is this is not connected to the IMF talks that Pakistan is having. And I also want to say something here. And my feeling is, my analysis is that a country that has just been promised over $10 billion because it has experienced one of the worst floods in the last 100 years or so, it would be very, very difficult for an institution like the IMF to say no to Pakistan at this juncture. I think there are some sticking points, but it's only a matter of time that the two sides are going to be able to find common ground or something to agree upon. So I think I am at least working with the background assumption that the IMF deal is going to come through. At least that is my assumption as an economist, and looking at the geopolitical, geoeconomic situation, and in particular Pakistan's soft power. So now, in order to answer your question, look, I am not privy to the kind of conditions that have been attached to what Pakistan has been promised, but I can tell you this: that these conditions are going to be very lenient. The interest rate is going to be at a minimum. However, the donors are going to exercise very close control, very close monitoring of how this money is being spent and where this is being spent. So I think if some people in the government or otherwise have this idea that they can use this money for some other purpose, I think that is not going to be possible, especially
Right.
against the background of the Prime Minister's promise that they are going to keep this whole process extremely transparent, because it is also an issue of Pakistan's credibility in the future. So I think the government is on the right track. Transparency is the order of the day. That's the right way to approach this entire process. And I'm looking forward to this money coming in, helping in the rebuilding of infrastructure. I'm looking forward to these funds bringing about some additional economic growth, some additional job creation.
Right.
So overall, I am very satisfied with the government's performance. Yes.
Absolutely, Dr. Saab, and that is great to hear. That is heartening to hear. But regarding IMF, you particularly spoke about some time that it is going to take, but eventually IMF will and Pakistan will reconcile, and we will be working together. Could you actually qualify something for us or help us understand? Because all this chatter about Pakistan not being able to foot its bill and therefore face a default is especially based on the speculation regarding the next major payment that the country might have to actually dole out. Could you actually give us some clarity when that might be? Because then we will have a clear timeline in mind. Before that, if IMF comes back, then things become easier for Pakistan.
And Dr. Agdas, with regards to how you are differentiating between the pledges made and the IMF, can you also further clarify in terms of whether or not we can possibly see any sort of cash inflow coming in, irrespective of the ninth review taking place?
Well, I still believe that there is not going to be any kind of strings attached when it comes to the money that has been promised as far as assistance with respect to reconstruction, rehabilitation after these floods is concerned. So I think money is going to come into Pakistan, but it is only going to be directed towards particular causes, particular projects, if you will. It is not going to assist Pakistan in trying to solve our cash crunch that this economy is facing, because our foreign exchange reserves are depleting at, at a significant pace. So even before any kind of payment is due, there is a realistic chance. I wouldn't want to say that the probability is zero, but uh, it's possible, but not probable, that a stage might come, say 7, 8, 9, 10 months from now, where Pakistan has not been able to agree on any kind of a deal, or the negotiations completely fail. And mind you, there is very slim possibility of that happening. Pakistan might actually run out of foreign exchange, and that is going to create a very, very serious situation. Something that we saw in Sri Lanka, whereby they were unable to import oil. And if you're not able to import oil, the whole economy is going to grind to a standstill. We are not going to be able to import infant formula. We are not going to be able to import extremely, important and life-saving drugs. So
Right.
I think that is something that to be concerned about. And these 2 billion that have been promised by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going to help in solving, or providing some aid to our ongoing cash crunch. And I think if Saudi Arabia is giving Pakistan $2 billion, there is a very high chance that they have talked to somebody at the IMF, and they have this idea that the IMF deal is going to come through. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still operating with the background assumption that this deal is going to come through.
Right, absolutely understood. Farooq, considering, of course, that the Prime Minister also reiterated today, and among the many who were part of the press conference, there was a discussion with regards to how a lot of this is going to depend now on Pakistan and the way that Pakistan is going to proceed further, and that perhaps also not just includes our deal with the IMF, it also majorly also includes the way that we're going to respond, or the way that we're going to see and follow up on the pledges, which of course is something that we've seen in the last year as well, in the immediate aftermath of the floods, that there were a number of pledges and commitments made, but not many that we saw in actual money coming in for the people. And a lot of that also was with reference to what Pakistan could have achieved in terms of proactively following up on the pledges made. Is that plan is in place, do you think, at the moment, in terms, because a lot of emphasis was on the numbers that were going to be shared, or the numbers of pledges that we're going to get from this particular conference. And of course, there is a lot of success and a lot of value in terms of the pledge, or the diplomatic victory, or the symbolic aspect of it. But in terms of the emphasis and groundwork being laid to follow up on this, do you think that that's present as well?
Right, Sana, I think that the government of Pakistan actually went to Geneva with a very comprehensive plan. It is called 4RF, right? Because it is focused on reconstruction, rehabilitation, and whatnot, and resilience also, by the way. So, government of Pakistan and its emissaries actually presented the case to the donors, or friends of Pakistan, as I'd like to call them. And of course, it was satisfying. That's why there were these pledges made. But in any case, you keep referring to the previous pledges that we saw.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is that part of such pledges are bilateral donations or grants, and then there is project-based loans, right? And in that, what happens is that whenever you get approval of any project, then there are going to be many moving parts. First, you have to get the feasibility approved, then the commitment of finances are initially released, and then you have to meet certain targets to get the rest of monies, right? In the past, it seems that may it be earthquake or may it be the 2010 floods, there was a problem in implementing or meeting those targets. That's why those money stopped. But that doesn't mean that bilateral money was not coming in, and we were not interested. Now, to answer the broader aspect of your question regarding our ability to spend those monies, there are three tiers of government that are important. The federal government is going to be the clearinghouse that is going to actually interact. But most of these, project-based loans are going to land on the local level. And there you need to have a robust machinery to implement whatever you have committed. If you can deliver on what you promise, then money will not stop. And I am hoping that initially, particularly the first 3 hours of the 4RF can be met very quickly. You can actually provide cash grants as well. You can help refurbish houses that have been destroyed. You can help in rebuilding lives. And then, of course, the final hour, that is resilience, will take hold. And that will take longer time, like 2 years, 3 years, to ensure that your embankments, all your projects or your water courses are built in a way that you don't have any problems in coming days. So to answer your short question in a long form, yes, and then to try to appreciate, I think it is possible and we have the capacity. Whatever we don't have, we can further enhance that. Remember a question, very important question that was asked today was regarding our part in the financial contribution, because the overall outlay was $16 billion, and we committed that half of it we are going to raise. So there was a question about PSDP and ADP from provinces, and it was said that the provinces are on board. If that happens, and if we have a coherent plan and we have the monies from our end as well, I think it will work.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Agdas, a quick question with regards to, of course, the IMF. If we go ahead with the assumption that we're going to get it, of course, a lot is being relied in terms of our economic recovery on that package. But in terms of the kind of comprehensive plan that is required, what do you think it needs to be done post achieving that package as well? Because there's much in terms of the economic recovery that Pakistan will have to do, even if we do get the IMF package.
I think in the immediate aftermath of getting the assistance from the IMF, we need to make sure that we do all the things that we have promised the IMF we are going to do. So those are going to include ending some of the subsidies that we are giving. That includes increasing or improving. And that also is going to touch on Pakistan's policy vis-a-vis the exchange rate. So I think these are going to be some very testy things that Pakistan is going to have to do. But I think I still believe that Pakistan, the government of Pakistan and the IMF are going to be able to reach a meeting of the minds.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Agdas, for joining us and for sharing that optimism that is, of course, much needed in terms of the challenging times that we face. There is a lot that Pakistan, of course, needs to do, especially on the economic front and also at the climate response front. And we have had many victories, a bit small in terms of the kind of progress that is required, but they're important for us to be able to develop that resolve and moving forward to be able to respond to the challenges that exist, not just in the aftermath of the floods, but also as being prone to climate-induced disasters as well. We're now going to be taking a look at the situation on the political side of things at home, especially with a focus on what is going on in the Punjab Assembly, the session that has been, of course, extended, and I suppose we only have a very short time left till that hour also ends. That was extended, but there are huge question marks as to the vote of confidence and what is going to happen, especially in terms of numbers, which both sides seem to be claiming is something that they have. Rana Maqbool Ahmed, Senator PMLN, has joined us in the debate online. Thank you very much, Rana Saab, for being a part of the discussion. And let me start ahead with you with regards to the Punjab Assembly. What do you think really is happening? Because we keep, of course, hearing different numbers coming in, and perhaps we'll get more clarity if there is indeed a vote of confidence taking place shortly afterwards. But as of now, it seems that the claims being made by both sides are talking about numbers, and we are not really sure which side is correct. What is your aspect on that? Do you think that the PTI has the numbers that they are referring to or not?
Thank you, Sana. My salam to every participant, honorable participant. As far as I understand, and the reports are, that number, the requisite number is not available to the government party. So therefore, there is no question of passage or the presentation or success of the vote of confidence. So this is the state of affairs right now. So
Okay.
tomorrow they have to appear before the court, and they have to tell the court whether they have been able to take the vote of confidence or not. So they'll have to explain for playing this game, hide and seek and hunting with the hound and running with the hare. So this
Right.
situation,
So, Rana Sahab, you think there is not going to be any vote of confidence taking place today?
I think there is no, because
Okay.
they don't have the adequate numbers. Requisite numbers are not available. So this is the latest situation. This is what the reports are from the House.
All right.
So,
Considering, of course, that the opposition, of course, has been demanding the vote of confidence for a number of days now, and we have seen that the courts has only extended this time till 9 a.m. tomorrow without any possibility of dissolution of assemblies. Don't you think that the vote of confidence is going to be taken before that?
yes, that is required because it was the governor order and it has not been dismissed by the court of law. Rather, the court is insisting that the chief minister must take vote of confidence. If at all he wants to dissolve the assembly, he can only do after the taking the vote of confidence. Therefore, I personally think dissolution so far is out of question. And the next step will be with the opposition. They'll bring vote of they'll bring request the governor to announce the election, because if they don't succeed in getting the vote of confidence, the chief minister will have to step down automatically.
Right,
So
but
then,
Rana Sahab, is there any compulsion on taking the vote of confidence before the Lahore High Court says anything on the matter?
no, because it was the governor's order, and governor is competent
But
to ask
isn't
for
that
vote of
order
confidence.
right now being discussed in the court?
It has been, it is staying back in limbo for the time being, but they have to give a clear verdict, and they can't withdraw the governor's power, constitutional power, to ask the chief minister for taking the vote of confidence. At any juncture, when the governor feels there are reasons for that the chief minister doesn't have the support of the majority of the House. So that is the issue. So the court can't interfere into the power of the governor. This is what the constitutional requirement is. So this
Right.
issue
Rana
is to
Sahab,
be
could
resolved.
you just clarify ballpark-wise what exactly is the number of MPs that are supporting or that are with the opposition in Punjab? That is your ruling coalition at the center. Rana Sahab.
Could you kindly, Patafi Sahab, repeat your question?
Yeah, Rana Sahab, I was asking, could you tell us how many MPs are going to vote for your party or your coalition if there is a vote?
If there is a vote, if there is a move for no confidence, this is what you are asking me, no?
Yeah, yeah.
If yes, so that I think they have already about 180. So they have to manage 5 more. If the government, the opposition manages 5 more, they'll be in majority. Then they can form the government. If the situation is of election. Number two, if both the parties don't have the majority, as it's not today, almost they have equal numbers, 171, 171. So it will be run of elections, 1 or 2 rounds of election, and whosoever wins the second round or the third round, he'll be their candidate will be elected as the chief minister. Because for election of the chief minister, the requirement is not the majority in the House. That's not required to an extent. To an extent that, like it's required in vote of confidence, in taking the vote of confidence, because for that you have to majority of the full strength of the House. But in the run of elections, you are not required to have majority in the full strength of the House. This will be the majority in the present members who are sitting and contesting
Present
the
and
elections.
voting. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
that is
Right.
there.
So Rana Sahab, of course, earlier the vote of no confidence was withdrawn by the opposition, and this was with reference to the CM no longer enjoying his position because there was no vote of confidence taken. But of course, the situation is different right now, and a lot perhaps depends on what the hearing is going to be tomorrow. But is there any plan in terms of putting forward a motion again?
Oh, yes, that is there. That is there. That's already an understanding, and that's a plan. And the opposition is determined to file a vote of no confidence because they think that they can manage. Because if the chief minister loses his position tomorrow, it means indirectly the opposition will be getting strengthened, and they need only four to five votes to have the majority in the house.
Right,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Farooq, we've seen statements coming in from PTI leaders, particularly Mr. Fawad Chaudhry as well, claiming that the vote of confidence will be taken tonight, something that, of course, Rana Sahab is not very confident about. But when we take a look at the situation, especially in terms of what this means in terms of PTI as credibility in the Punjab Assembly and whether or not the CM enjoys any confidence in the Assembly, it'll be important, of course, to see whether or not this vote of confidence takes place tonight. If for any reason that this doesn't happen, do you think that this is going to have any long-lasting impact on the Punjab Assembly and this coalition, and also whether or not there is any need of this vote of confidence before the hearing tomorrow?
All right. I think Rana Sahab has already clarified the second part, but let me say that in my view, because there is a stay on the dissolution of assembly, so it is implicit in the decision or the extension that a vote of confidence has to be sought before that happens, right? Whether it is vote of confidence or facing a vote of no confidence, that is up to Punjab Assembly, but that is where we are. But my question, Sana, is bigger. Why are we here? Punjab government changed hands a few months ago, and after that there wasn't any vote of no confidence that they were facing. But why did the governor ask, and why was there a vote of no confidence that was actually withdrawn, that motion? The answer is because PTI wanted to dissolve the Punjab Assembly. Now question is, why did PTI want to actually do it? Only because it is PTI is throwing a temper tantrum. One man loses his government at the center, so all the remaining governments that PTI has in power, 4 of them are still in power, by the way. They have to dissolve the assemblies and they have to actually quit the government. Why is it that while you keep on saying that it is democracy and you should get your right or representation, why is it that PTI has resigned from the Central Assembly or Federal Assembly? Why is it that it is adamant to dissolve 2 other assemblies within the purview of Pakistan, right? The answer is one man's attitude. And if we are today here in this position, what do you think how does it bode for the Pakistan's future, and what does it bode for Punjab's political party and PTI's future? I think it doesn't bode well, because right now it is only an ego match, and one man's ego is such that he would rather demolish everything if he doesn't get the power at the center. And that is not acceptable. I think even if Parvez Elahi actually wins the vote of confidence, we hear that he might have the numbers they keep on claiming. It is a house of 370 members, and out of that you need 185 is the breaking point. 186 MPs you need to stay in power. And then, of course, as Rana Sahab pointed out, that there is going to be, if nobody can show that number, there is going to be a runoff vote. And in that, all present and counting, their total number is counted. And then whosoever scores the majority of that number, they get away with it, right? So that is not the question. The actual question is, if Parvez Elahi gets elected again, is he going to dissolve the assembly? And if he is going to dissolve the assembly, what are you telling to the people of Punjab that one egoist leader was demanding and you just threw everything away? It is an advantage. Why are you throwing that advantage away just to placate a person who may not be able to become PM again?
Absolutely. Rana Sahab, what do you think is the plan of the opposition parties and the government in reference to what happens in case the CM is of course restored and there is a dissolution of assemblies? Will there be enough time for the opposition parties to be able to go ahead with the no confidence motion? And then also in terms of moving forward, what exactly do you think can be done with regards to the larger political questions, especially in Punjab and then elsewhere as well? Because it's been quite some time where the PTI's chairman is referred to causing a lot of disruption at different fronts, but there isn't much done in terms of consequence.
Yes, I agree with my honorable friend. He's absolutely correct. It will take half a minute to file the proposition of no confidence. Then he'll not be able to dissolve the assemblies. If at all, in any eventuality, if we decide that we will not let the assembly get dissolved. Now, issue is perhaps, as he has rightly mentioned, is the temperamental behavior of an egotistic person. He is playing havoc with everything, and he has become an instrument of turbulence. He is throwing spanner into the wheels of every issue. You might have seen his conduct when the Prime Minister and other delegates were there in Geneva, what he has been doing. He tried everything to sabotage and to damage the image of Pakistan abroad. It's different that he couldn't succeed. He miserably failed. But look at the intent of this person. So perhaps he does not fit in the framework of genuine and healthy democratic structure. I already mentioned many a time before this August House that there are certain mental health issues. So the idiosyncratic, overpowering idiosyncratic behavior is the real ailment. So the whole of the nation will look into it, and he should not be given this liberty to play havoc with everything. He should not become an agent of devastation, which he has become. And I already protested with the people who matter in the government. For God's sake, take action. Take action according to law. Take action according to the Constitution. You are not doing any service to the people by delaying action which is warranted by law. You must take action. If you don't, then you are betraying the cause of the nation. So that is the answer to the question. Proper, lawful, legitimate, legal action which is warranted by law. That is the answer to the question. We should not delay this issue.
Rana Sahab, previously there was also a lot of conversation with regards to the government also being prepared for elections being held on a large number of seats as well in case the assemblies are in fact dissolved. And this of course was something that was talked about in terms of a challenge to the PTI to go ahead with what announcement they have made regarding dissolution of assemblies. Considering now of course where we stand and what part of the fiscal year and the kind of economic challenges that we face, we recently of course had shown our claims with regards to the way we want to move ahead in terms of our response to climate change. Are we still in a position to be able to go ahead with the elections in case the assemblies are dissolved and then we have to have elections on a large number of seats?
That is a different issue. If at all the assemblies are dissolved, number one, if the assembly is dissolved by the Chief Minister, it will be decidedly challenged in the High Court. And you never know what the High Court decides. And there will be an appeal before the Supreme Court. If the larger number of the political parties are saying, after all, if we talk about opposition, they procured 68% votes from the total votes in the country. Perhaps Imran Sahab thinks that they are non-entity and they can be thrown away any time. That is not the case. I have been telling my people as well, look, if he thinks that he'll bring 100,000 people on the street, the opposition can bring 200,000 people on the street if at all there is a competition of bringing people on the streets. So strength of the opposition, if it's properly mustered and used, is much bigger than Imran Khan. It is something different that due to their lethargy, due to their indifference, I don't hesitate in mincing words. I don't mince words. I have been telling them, you failed to support your candidates in the by-elections. There was none to support them. And Shizra, I mentioned perhaps to you in the last programs, Shizra has been talking to me. She was protesting. Even then, she got 80,000 votes vis-a-vis 90,000 votes from Imran Khan. So that's a vote bank. They could not muster proper support and they didn't
All
work.
right.
Nor they have been pulled up by the leadership, the Qa'id, their Qa'id. Nor they'll have to put their foot down. And I don't think so that they can win elections like this. If Muslim League, especially in Punjab,
Right.
goes
Absolutely.
for
Thank you very
elections
much, Rana Saab,
methodically,
for joining us and sharing your views. Thank you for being part of the
Thank
debate.
you.
Of course, there's much that still remains to be seen. But we really hope that whatever happens in Punjab or elsewhere in Pakistan as well is something that is good for the country and that we're able to take the kind of political response that is required from our leadership. That's all that we have from the debate. See you tomorrow.